One question on the lips of most riders with a mechanical group set is there really any benefit to upgrading to an electronic group set? Well, in this video, we're going to answer exactly that. Welcome back to the channel. I'm John, the Ribble Valley Cyclist. Now, YouTube is absolutely littered with videos where people have got electronic group sets and mechanical group sets and put them side by side and compared them. In my opinion, it's a complete waste of time because technically electronic is a better group set. But the question I'm here to answer is not whether it's better or not. Is it worth it, and will you see a benefit? Shimano surprised us all by only offering Ultegra in Di2, and then they went and knocked the whole industry sideways by doing exactly the same thing with 105, the group set for the people that's aimed at the entry-level pro. Furthermore, we're now seeing manufacturers from China like L2, and even they're going down the road of electronic shifting. And then we're even seeing bike manufacturers like Pinarello, for example, with their top frame that is only compatible with Di2. So the manufacturers are pushing electronic shifting in and forcing mechanical shifting out. The price difference between the old mechanical 105 and its new Di2 counterpart is roughly £750, and it's a similar story for Ultegra. £750 difference. That's a lot of money. What could you do with £750 on your bike? You could put yourself a very nice set of carbon wheels on there and still have change left over for a nice set of flash tyres and a pint down the pub at the end of the night. There's no point in talking about what electronic shifting can do that mechanical shifting can't. It's a pointless conversation because electronic shifting has got loads and loads of additional features that mechanical shifting hasn't got and will never have. But let's ignore all of that. The Bluetooth, the Di2 hidden buttons, the synchronous shifting. Let's just look at the two group sets as group sets and discuss what's good and what's bad. Right, so first off, let's talk about where electronic shifting has the edge over mechanical. And the first point, shifting. Both group sets do it well, but one does it a lot better. This bike here running Di2, press the button, click, changed. None of that stuck between two sprockets on the cassette. And on the front, none of that come off the power, force the lever over, wait for the chain to climb up from the small ring into the big. Bang, done it straight away. Press the button, it's on the top ring. Now in Shimano's case, they achieve this perfect shifting using something that not many people talk about called microshift, where what it does is it overshifts, overcompensates so that the shift is guaranteed and then just trims itself back once the shift is completed. Another great feature is the front and rear mechs work together as a team, and what will happen is the front mech will automatically trim itself to accommodate where the rear mech is. No need for you to trim it yourself manually. So when it comes down to shift quality, electronic wins every single time because electronic shifting can do something that the human just cannot do with a mechanical lever. One of the biggest differences I've personally noticed is maintenance. Once a Di2 group set is installed, there is little to no maintenance on it. Set it and forget it, because after all, electronic wires theoretically shouldn't wear out. However, gear cables do. They need regular maintenance. You need to keep your eye on them, keep them clean, and then one day, when you least expect it, it will snap on you. And then you've got, with a modern bike like this one down here, you've got that nightmare that is internally routed cables. Don't even get me started on that one. One point that is rarely discussed when comparing mechanical and electronic is control. If you are doing a technical, tight, steep descent, you will need to brake, steer, and change gear simultaneously. And if you're running a mechanical group set, that can be really hard to do. If you're running a mechanical group set, next time you're out on your bike, try changing gear and braking simultaneously. It's really hard to do. If you're running an electronic group set, simple, pull the brake, little finger, press the button, changes gear every time. So in that regard, electronic shifting wins hands down. Another point that's rarely discussed with electronic shifting is adaptive shifting. You may suffer from limited movement, arthritis for example, which could result in you not being able to ride a bike. But with electronic shifting, press of a button, it's just a light feather touch. And this may get you back on your bike again. And you get the more extreme scenarios where somebody needs both shifters on one side of the bike. And with an electronic group set, you can do this. I've tried to do this with mechanical group sets in the past, where you have both shifts on one side of the bars, and it sort of can be done using various types of levers, but it's a mess. So in that regard, if you've got some kind of restricted movement, then Di2 is fantastic. So if you're finding this content useful, do me a huge favour and hit the like button. And if bike maintenance and servicing is your thing, then make sure you hit subscribe and the bell icon, and then you'll get notified every time I upload a video. Right, so now let's go and have a look at what's not so good about electronic shifting. As mentioned previously, the cost difference between the group sets cannot be ignored. However, in my opinion, the cost difference between the components is a much bigger issue here. When you break something, which you will, you are going to be in a world of pain. So let's take a look at this bike running Ultegra 8000 Di2. That rear derailleur is £239. That is £166 more than its mechanical cousin. Now, in the last few years, I've broken a couple of rear derailleurs, and I really hope I don't break that one. A lever, which is easily snapped in a crash or a drop, £200 for a lever. Sat in here is a battery. And when it eventually dies, because it's a battery, so it will eventually die, that little battery, it's about that long, £150. Oh, and at the point of making this video, those three components that I've just described, nobody's got any in stock. However, mechanical rear derailleur, plenty of stock. Levers, left and right, plenty of stock. Another big negative of electronic shifting is when that battery goes flat. This is the one that amuses all the mechanical riders. Now, if you're a rider of mechanical, you'd look at that and think, how do you do that? It's actually quite easy, because the group set uses next to no power. So you get on your bike and it says 100%, and then you check it 3 days later, it says 98%. Eventually, you give up looking, and that's when it catches you out, and boom, flat battery. And if the battery dies in the middle of a ride, you are stuck in whatever gear it died in until you get home. Another tricky part of living with Di2 can be the small shifter buttons. Now hear me out. If you're on a winter ride and you're wearing your big, thick winter mittens or winter gloves, these two buttons that are really close together and hardly move, it can be very fiddly to work out which one's which through big winter gloves. A mechanical group set, because it's got that long sweep, it's reassuring to know that the change you're doing is the change you intended to do. Now, although an electronic group set is a lot more reliable than a mechanical group set, it can be a nightmare if it goes wrong, especially if it gets that really annoying intermittent fault. For example, I had one in the other week where the shifter cable had been fitted very tight, and when the rider was up on the hoods, intermittently it would unplug the cable and it's just lose all shifting. Other ones you see down here, this cable runs very, very close to the back wheel on some frames, so that cable is vulnerable. The cables are very fragile, and as I say, if you're out and about and you get a fault on the road, you're really going to struggle to repair this group set. And let's say, for example, you're out touring and something actually breaks. Can you imagine limping into a local bike shop in some random town somewhere and saying, "Hiya mate, have you got a left Di2 shifter or a battery or a derailleur?" Good luck with that, they're not going to have it in stock. But if it was a mechanical group set, then the chances are, if you did snap off a derailleur, and even if you didn't have the Shimano Dura Ace one, you'd have the Shimano Ultegra one, or you know what, he might even botch up a SRAM one for you, and he's going to have gear cables and all of that sort of stuff. So in that regard, although Di2 electronic shifting is more reliable, if and when it does go wrong, it can be a real headache. So before you spend your hard-earned money on an electronic group set, how about you ask yourself a few questions? For example, would it make you a faster cyclist? Okay, so here is a picture of me riding up what some say is the hardest climb in England. Would electronic shifting got me over that climb any quicker? No. And here's another photograph of me doing a ride in London last year where I set myself a PB to complete the relatively long circuit in an amount of time. And do I think electronic shifting would have got me around that course any quicker? If I'm honest, I don't think it would have done. Or if it did, it would have been marginal. Is electronic shifting more reliable than mechanical shifting? As mentioned previously, yes, without a doubt, it is more reliable. However, that comes with a word of warning, because if it does fail, you're unlikely to be able to repair it roadside, and if you do limp into a local bike shop, depending on how, shall we say, modern that bike shop is, there is a little chance that they're going to be able to help you with your problem. Will electronic shifting make my life easier? Yes, it will, because as mentioned previously, it's more reliable, so you don't have to dick around with it so much, and it doesn't get on your nerves so much, because it just works. Is electronic shifting good value for money? Well, that depends on your personal circumstance. If you're after marginal gains, perfect shifting every time, and you're racing, for example, then yes. If you're really into your gadgets and you want to control your head unit through your hidden buttons on your levers, or you want to control your back light, then yes, it's great and you may get value for money. However, if all you do is plod around with your mates at 13 miles an hour on a Saturday doing a cafe run, then I suspect you're going to struggle to see value out of an electronic group set. Does electronic shifting do a better job? Yes, as mentioned previously, it's a superior shift. Click, shift, click, shift. You get a perfect shift every time. And also, it doesn't need a great deal of maintenance. As long as you keep it clean, it will work perfectly. As long as you don't bend it or break it, it will work perfectly every time. The manufacturers have got what is basically a perfectly good solution that does a perfectly good job and made it better. Now, if you want to find out a little bit more about electronic shifting, in particular Shimano's Di2, check that video up there. And if you want to know what I feel are the 10 things that you should take on every bike ride you go on, check that video down there. Thanks for watching.